evening and welcome to Sound Health on Lagos Television. I am Ola Sumbo Mbudupe. This week is observed as the World Breastfeeding Week. From providing essential antibodies to building a foundation for lifelong health, breast milk is often called nature's ultimate superfood. But while it is natural, it isn't always easy, and getting the right nutrition for mother and the baby can raise a lot of questions. How much should a nursing mother actually eat? Which nutrients boost milk supply? Find out more in a while.
Across Nigeria, most mothers do breastfeed, but too few do it the right way. Only 1 in 3 babies are put to the breast within the first hour of birth. Only 3 in 10 babies are exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months of their lives. No water, no formula, no solid food, just breast milk. In the south of Nigeria, with our hospitals, with our markets, with our busy working mothers, we can change that number. But a mother cannot do this alone.
It is still Sound Health on Lagos Television. Is it true that nursing mothers need to eat for 2? What essential nutrients support a healthy milk supply, and how do you know if your baby is getting what they need? Here to debunk the myth and give us the ultimate nutritional blueprint for nursing mothers is nutrition advocate Dr. Osita Okonkwo. He is the country director of Nutrition International. Good evening, Dr. Okonkwo, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening. How are you?
Why is human milk still considered the absolute gold standard for infant health and development?
Human milk is considered as a gold standard for infant health and development because it is essentially a biological composed of living foods, uniquely designed, to meet the nutritional and immunological as well as developmental need of the human infants. So the infant formula you usually have that oftentimes replace the human milk does not have this immunological and biological component that enriches the human milk. And that's why it's considered as the gold standard, because beyond all of that, it helps to provide optimal nutrition for the child. When we say optimal nutrition, meaning nutrition that contains the ideal balance of both the nutrients the child needs and all the developmental requirements for that age group. So we look at it as containing essential fats and minerals, contains proteins, contains adequate amount of glucose, lactose, and the primary carbohydrate the body needs at that early age. The elements like calcium, like vitamins, all components of vitamins that the body needs, the highest levels of bioavailabilities of all forms of micronutrients. So it is essential that every child is exposed at a very early stage to this very important, powerful immune protection component. And of course, in looking at the breast milk, the key essential elements will also include the content of immunoglobulins, immunoglobulin A and all of that, lactoferrin and lysoenzyme that it contains are very essential for building the immune system of the child at early stage. And when you have a child that has been breastfed, this child come prepared, and this is a child that would withstand early infections at the infection that children are faced with, and they can grow very healthy in that aspect. So we look at the milk that will also address the health of the gut system, GIT, what you may call gastrointestinal system of the child. And it is designed in a way that the child is just born and coming to the world and coming to our kind of diet. It's been prepared to initiate the child into a very well organized, system that absorb the food, give the required benefit to the bacteria that is already, a presence both in the environment and also in the gut, and be able to help to prevent recurrent infections for that child. So there's no substitute for human um, milk. And of course, it also enhances the brain development for that child. So when you look at a child that is well breastfed, it has adequate resourcing of the micronutrient the body needs. And I think is the best gift you can give your child, to give the child breast milk at birth and ensure that you continue to breast exclusively for 6 months and then introduce complementary feeding thereafter.
Dr. Okonkwo, there is a popular myth that nursing mothers need to eat for two or follow routine diets. What are the actual nutritional demands on a mother's body during lactation compared to pregnancy?
Yeah, what I was saying is that yes, for a mother, what you actually see is that during pregnancy, the requirement for the woman increases. Dietary requirements increases, and she's exposed to dietary needs to meet her. The body begin to have a lot of demand for nutrition, and those demand because of increased metabolic activities. The demand for protein, demand for micronutrients, demand for vitamins are quite high. Don't forget, this woman who is pregnant is also preparing for lactation, so she needs to develop appropriately in all aspects. And you kind of looking at what essentially are the deep fluid of the body. Body is also growing, the fetus is also growing. So there is need a lot of demand for energy, a lot of demand for fluid for the woman and for the baby. There's also high demand for, all the minerals that the body will need for the growing baby. So the nutrient demand are quite enormous. But at the same time, those demands are also met when the woman eats appropriate meals, But of course, we have also advised that for pregnant women to be able to meet all of these demands, to minerals, vitamins, and also the energy needs and the proteins, should also be exposed to receive supplementation. So that's why we introduce multiple micronutrient supplements to provide all of those aspects of the need that may not be, provided by the, routine diet that she possibly consumes. So we feel that at that very important early age, she needs to be able to, be well provided with all that the body needs to be able to grow and nourish.
Is there anything like poor quality milk supply due to meals consumed before, during, and after pregnancy by mothers?
So if a woman is well prepared during pregnancy for lactation, so she will have built adequate immune store that will be available for the child during lactation. So there are no questions around that. But you also know that when a woman is breastfeeding, she requires adequate energy, adequate proteins, adequate micronutrients, adequate vitamins, all to support the process of breastfeeding, which is very critical. So we would advise that even at the point of pregnancy, she's also preparing for a proper and adequate lactation. So that is what is in essence. And I think that is one of the reasons why we provide nutritional counseling during pregnancy. And also, at Nutrition International, we promote, nutritional counseling, we promote support for pregnancy through the provision of multiple micronutrient supplements to help build the store and help the woman to, the baby to grow well as a fetus. And then when the baby has grown well and comes out well prepared, and well nourished, then the breastfeeding process would also be such that would sustain the nourishment for the child after delivery. And I think that is the very essence of what we do, both at Nutrition International and also support the government of Nigeria to provide for pregnant women across the country.
Dr. Okonkwo, let's quickly debunk some myths and cultural misconceptions. In many communities, mothers are told that if their baby is crying or if their breasts don't feel full, their milk isn't nutritious enough. How can a mother know if her baby is actually getting enough nourishment?
If a baby is going well, the mother will see the child, gaining weight steadily. So the most critical feature of a child that is growing well is the weight gain. And that is why when the woman visits the health facility, routinely the child weight is measured. There are usually expected weights for that child at every stage of their growth. So if a child is meeting up with those weight expectations, then the child is growing well. And of course, you can also see the features of maybe some of the psychomotor features that were expected, to show that the child is actually doing well. It's quite easy. If I have time, I will just explain some of those. But maybe for out of time, I will also just say that there is usually regular growth monitoring exercises provided at the health facilities, which are very objective in assessing whether the breastfeeding is meeting the need of the child. And I think that is what the health facility workers would be able to do when the woman takes the child to routine assessment, which is usually done. I mean, it is actually mapped out, how they come in the 6 week, 10 week, 14 weeks, and all of that. So those are quite ways when a child is being assessed. Other things will also be whether the child is having enough wet and dry diapers, to be able to show the child is also making enough urine and is also passing, physics as expected. We look at it as sometimes it is said that at least 6 wet diapers for every 24 hours is expected at the early stage of the child life. So, and you also want to look at the color of the stool, whether they are yellow or loose, and the pattern of the stool will also change after some time, which becomes a little bit thicker, those color changes and all of that. So these are things that will be used to measure how the child is growing. And if the child is feeding effectively well, now you will also see that the baby suckling reflexes, the ability of the child to hold the hand of the mother, and then you also want to look at the appearance of the child, whether the child is sleeping well, resting well, whether it's wakes up to feed. And when this happens, you also want to be sure that the mother is, expressing breast milk adequately, and that the child is also receiving adequate milk. They've said that it being full. And of course, when the child is not feeling well, they will be crying. So when the child is continuously crying, you know that the child is hungry and they're not receiving enough.
The goal behind breastfeeding is to ensure babies are nourished adequately, exclusively for 6 months. Some mothers struggle with breastfeeding due to illness, experience, and not so good experience and economic reasons. How do we ensure mothers are encouraged to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months?
I think the most important thing is for the woman to know that breastfeeding is something of joy for the mother. A mother to breastfeed her child is something that she should enjoy doing. And to grow that confidence she needs to be able to do that, she will need family support. It's usually the family-centered thing, the father, the mother-in-law, the auntie, everybody comes together to support the woman through the process. And it has shown, evidence has shown that, when a woman is breastfeeding her child, there's a bonding between the mother and the child. And that bonding grows for life. And I think it's something that every woman wants to enjoy. But to get to that point, you need to also encourage the woman in a non-judgmental approach, which is something that we're also very happy to emphasize, where the woman, is encouraged to breastfeed. I know sometimes they'll come with painful nipples, and for that reason, they don't want to breastfeed because the children will just out of uh, childhood exuberances, they will be biting on that, and then she comes down with pains, and that pain will make it difficult for her to want to breastfeed. But with continuous encouragement, support by the family, there's a likelihood that she would continue to effectively breastfeed, which is very important. Now, that being said, it's just more of emphasizing on support rather than putting pressure on the woman. So a lot of time, mother-in-laws will put pressure on the woman, and that will make them to be very resentful. And don't forget that there are issues like I mentioned, nipple that is painful, and then sometimes it could be difficult and pain, and then and maybe the breast is engorged, and then there is sometimes the woman is walking and she's tired and fatigued, and there is also anxiety, maybe not coming, and she's still worried and anxious and not able to, be able to respond effectively. And some of them may have medical condition and may not allow them to be able to breastfeed quite effectively. So all of those need to be put together to support this woman and ensure that she's able to, joyfully, happily breastfeed. Breastfeeding is, like I said, is something of joy. And every mother knows that this is one aspect of motherhood that only the mother can give. Only the mother can give. So, something that the father can do for her, or she may want some other person to want to do for her, except there is any medical need for that. But beyond that, every mother wants to be able to breastfeed their child. And I think with that alone, we're able to strengthen the bond with the mother and the child. And then the role of the father and the family is mostly to encourage the mother, help her and in household responsibilities to be able to make time for her to breastfeed, as expected, and then ensure that she has adequate nutrition. And that is one of the support that the family should all be provide for her. And then ensuring that she has the support she needs, an initiative within the system that can promote breastfeeding. That is also very important when you have, breastfeeding mother clubs and all of that. And then they also be able to help one another. Maybe you have peer groups that could help one another even at the workplace to be able to discuss breastfeeding, discuss the challenges, and be able to provide solutions. Sometimes also we also recommend that in the workplace there is a space meant for the woman to be able to breastfeed. That is why we will always ask for, work-friendly, breastfeeding-friendly workplace. So the woman will be able to have a space within the workplace where she could actually breastfeed her child. Some people call it crèche or whatever, but it has to be made available in the workplace. And that is one of the most important components of a breastfeeding-friendly work environment. She'll be able to encourage the woman to breastfeed when she's breastfeeding. So we feel that all of these things will help the woman. And like you have mentioned earlier, the woman needs to be supported. And that support is what has to come from the family, from the colleagues, from the neighborhood, and from society. She has to be encouraged. And that is what is required at this modern time to be sure that the woman breastfeeds her child 6 months exclusively. And of course, providing maternity leave for her, which is paid, is also very, very key because that will make her have access to the child at home and be able to breastfeed more effectively as expected. Over to you.
When a baby hits that 6-month mark and starts eating solid foods, how should mothers balance complementary feeding alongside continued breastfeeding?
We recommend exclusive breastfeeding at the first 6 months of life.
Yeah.
Without water added or any liquid. That's to ensure that the child is able to, in the course of, tests and nutrition and taking the nutrition that she needs, she's able to take exclusively what is contained in the breast milk, and that is why it is exclusive. Because the breast milk alone will provide all the nutrients and the energy that the child needs for that first 6 months of life. So that is given. But then what you're asking about breast milk not been enough? Well, after 6 months, the child will have grown. The volume of the milk may not be adequate enough for that child to sustain beyond 6 months. And that is why we now begin to introduce diets, complementary feeding. It is
All right.
complementary because you are still breastfeeding and you're also adding that to meet the child's demand.
All right, sir.
Because by that time, the child has grown to a certain weight that is making the requirement of that child to be more than what the mother can produce on her breast milk. So you now need to add more to be able to meet the child appetite for for feeding. So in that instance, you are looking at balanced diet that has carbohydrate, has protein, has fats, has minerals, essential minerals and vitamins all combined. And that is what should be a very ideal complementary feeding for the child to have. So we encourage mothers, to look out for those element of feeds that, meal that contains all of those that the child needs. And it has to be something quite within the environment, local, and that addresses all of that. So during the antenatal period, when the woman attends her ANC services, these are all explained to the woman to the point that she will understand what is required and what can be the kind of meal she can prepare at early stage of the child's life that will meet the child's need and also be able to address the conversion from 100% breast milk to complementary filled milk in a gradual process so that you do not have issues that may arise if it is suddenly introduced.
Dr. Okonkwo, enlighten us about the 4-4-4 rule for breastfeeding.
Yeah, my understanding is that we want every child to have appropriate milk by the mother at the appropriate time through breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is not just mechanical, not just expressing breast and keeping your milk somewhere and then putting the milk inside the container and pouring them out of the child. We want that bonding between the mother and the child. When the mother carries her child and put the child on the milk, there's a communication between the mother and the child, which is what we are encouraging. We want to encourage women to actually breastfeed, not just express the milk and get somebody to put it on the child's mouth and you do something else. No, we will encourage the woman to have her child, cuddle her child, and breastfeed her child. That is the essence and joy of motherhood, and that's what we encourage.
All right.
So I am 100% for that, and that is why we will say, let there be a crèche for the woman. Let the woman be given paternity leave so that she can go home and be able to have access to her child and continuously breastfeed. People who probably would want to promote those aspects of storage of milk is because the woman does not have access to the child and she has to provide the milk and go at home and goes to work after maybe some weeks or months at home with the child, and she has to rush to return back to work before 6 when she's supposed to be breastfeeding, and suddenly she has to express the milk and then leave it with the child for hours and all of that. What we are saying is that we want the child to be breastfed by the mother directly, cuddling the child, creating that bonding that the child and the mother need that ensures emotional growth, both for the mother and for the child. And that is what is encouraged. And that is what we advocate.
Dr. Okonkwo, your final words to mothers who feel overwhelmed or worried about their breastfeeding journey as we wrap up now.
Yes, my final words to every mother is to know that breastfeeding is a thing of joy. That every mother will enjoy motherhood through adequate breastfeeding of their child. And that breastfeeding your child is giving that child the nutritional requirement they need to grow and nourish and thrive. And at Nutrition International, we promote breastfeeding. We encourage breastfeeding. And we ask every mother to enjoy that motherhood and to experience the bonding that they need for their children. And that a well-breastfed child is a well-nourished child and will become a great child in their lifetime.
That is all we have time for, Dr. Okonkwo, on this segment. A huge thank you to you, Dr. Okonkwo.
Well, most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Osita Okonkwo is the country director of Nutrition International, and he has been breaking down the facts, debunking the myth, and giving us the essential nutritional blueprint for World Breastfeeding Week and how to ensure children have a healthy start. Up next is Trending Health Report from around the world. Please stay tuned. The program is still Sound Health on Lagos Television, and we have been looking at how to maximize a child's first 1,000 days for a healthy start and healthier nation. Your child deserves nothing but the best, nutritionally speaking, because a healthy start is the right start. This is where we say thank you on today's episode of Sound Health. Head over to our social media pages if you have questions or topics you'd like us to treat at Lagos Television, #Sound Health. A sound health is a sound mind. Make healthy living your choice.